Okay.
Once again, another bill
No
with...
problem.
This also had strong bipartisan support in the Senate, 343, the truth in labeling for recycling material, recyclable material. So let me start by accepting the committee's analysis amendments, and I want to thank the committee for its strong and diligent work on the bill. The changes that were listed reflect ongoing conversations with the opposition, and they help us to address some of the issues that industry has raised. So this is it's a simple measure. I know we're always supposed to be wary when people say that, but it is. So the idea is that when current law prohibits a manufacturer from making untruthful environmental claims, such as recyclable, if an item is not really recyclable in the real world. So you cannot write the word recyclable on your bottle if the bottle's not really recyclable. And yet, folks who are not able to put the word recyclable routinely put the recycling symbol on their items because there's no prohibition against that. So this bill extends this prohibition for the use of the chasing arrow symbol, that recycling symbol that we all know, if the material is not recyclable. And it offers clear guidance on what, in fact, constitutes recyclability. Here's the sad truth, members. Less than 15% of single-use plastic is actually recycled in our state. And we actually have relatively high numbers compared to other places. Now, recycling costs are now exceeding the scrap value of the plastic material itself. And this is one of the really important things. There's so much, folks just dutifully put all these items in the blue bins, hoping that these items will be recycled. It's called wish cycling. And sometimes, all they're doing is they're just following the instructions on their plastic materials. They see the recycling symbol. I used to do this all the time. Until I learned a little bit about this. My newspaper, I still read the LA Times at my home, and they come in this little sleeve, and there was the recycling symbol on there. And I would always dutifully separate it out and put it right in my recycling bin because it had the recycling symbol there. Well, it turns out that's a type of highly unrecyclable plastic. It is technically recyclable under the best of conditions at 1,000 degrees in some lab in San Marino. But at the end of the day, it's not recycled. They're not recycled in the real world. And in fact, those newspaper sleeves, and there's so many examples of this, actually end up gumming up the process. They end up jamming up the machines. They end up getting stuck into the paper. They actually end up making the whole recycling system more expensive and less efficient. And so, so first of all, if a material is not actually recyclable, they have to go through a whole process at the sorting centers. If you haven't been to one of these centers before, let's go. It's an eye-opening experience. The item actually has to be physically removed from the conveyor belt at the recycling facility and then, of course, carted away to a landfill. This is extra work. It increases waste rates. The cost to the process truly recyclable material. It's also, of course, contaminated the existing recyclable material. One of the reasons why China decided to end the importation of our recycling material, especially in the area of paper, for example, is that so much plastic was getting stuck in the paper bales that the paper, the value of those paper bales was just rendered such that it just wasn't worth their receiving them anymore. And here's the thing. It is already hitting your constituents' pocketbooks. A survey released this year by the League of California Cities found that more than 7 of 10 cities anticipate increasing waste collection rates by as much as 20%, members, to cover the cost of managing the additional waste. County of Sacramento just raised their rates for trash collection, I believe, by a little over $10, on top of an already substantial amount, $10 a month. So the strain on local recycling and waste systems, it's compounded as consumers mistakenly believe that the chasing arrow symbol that often encircles the plastic resin identification code means that the product is recyclable. We know that recycling is confusing. There was a study that was taken by the Consumer Brands Association that finds that that Americans find recycling, knowing how to recycle, what to recycle, more confusing than building IKEA furniture, doing their taxes, playing the stock market, or understanding their spouse. So there we are. We want to conform the rules so that if you can't say that the item is recyclable, if you can't print that, if you're not allowed under our rules to print that your item is recyclable because it's not truly recyclable in the real world, you shouldn't be able to slap the chasing arrow symbol there onto that item. So with me today, we have Heidi Sanborn from the National Stewardship Action Council, who also chairs the Statewide Recycling Commission, and also Mark Aprea, who's here from Republic Services, who can give the on-the-ground experience of a waste hauler who deals with all of this mess. So let's start with, Madam Chair.
No, thank you. We'll go ahead and start with Mark since he's here in the room.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senator Allen, we want to thank Senator Allen for bringing this measure forward and appreciate his efforts to make recycling more effective. Republic Services supports SB 343, a measure that is as much about truth in advertising as it is about improving California's recycling system. California's recycling infrastructure is one of the most effective and efficient in the world, but in spite of billions of dollars being invested into the system and infrastructure to improve recycling, contamination remains one of the most significant and expensive obstacles. Significant investments have been made in extensive manual sort lines, optical sorters, screens, shredders, blowers, and other advanced technologies. And local jurisdictions and their local haulers spend hundreds of millions of dollars annually educating consumers on what is recyclable in an effort to improve recycling rates and reduce contamination and recycling costs. But those dollars are wasted if packaging or material, including markings that falsely claim those packages or materials, are recyclable. False claims of recyclability confuse consumers who already struggle identifying correctly what should be placed in the recycling bin. I'm sure all of you have your own experience as well as the experience within your families. Senate Bill 343 is fundamentally about truth in advertising. Don't claim your package or material is recyclable unless there is an actual recycling market for the material and it can be readily and effectively removed from the waste stream. Senator Allen took my example in terms of plastic film. Those are repeated with other kinds of containers and solid waste that claim to be recycling, but in fact are not. SB 343 sets an effective and clear standard for recyclability that will increase recycling efficiencies, improve consumer confidence in recycling, and will reduce recycling rates for ratepayers, local jurisdictions, and recyclers. We thank you, Senator Allen, and we urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Next, we have Heidi Sanborn on the line. Moderator, can you please open the line for Ms. Sanborn?
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Heidi Sanborn, and I am the Executive Director of the National Stewardship Action Council, a nonprofit that advocates for a circular economy and a co-sponsor of SB 343. I also have the privilege of serving as chair of the statewide commission on recycling markets and curbside recycling, a group of 17 diverse stakeholders that represent local governments, waste haulers, and NGOs that is tasked with providing advice to the state on how to reduce contamination in our recycling system. The commission released its preliminary report last December with 19 unanimously adopted policy recommendations, one of which recommends truthful labeling to reduce consumer confusion and the resulting contamination. The chasing arrow symbol is universally understood to symbolize recyclability, but companies are currently putting the symbol on products that cannot be recycled. This creates confusion and leads to wish cycling, resulting in contamination in the system and increased costs that are borne by ratepayers. According to the Consumer Brand Association Reduce, Reuse, and Confuse report, only 4% of U.S. respondents said that recycling is not confusing. Consumers want to do the right thing, but they feel lied to when they learn that some products for packaging bear the chasing arrow symbol and are not recyclable. And they get mad at government for allowing the companies to use this deceptive labeling. SB 343 will stop mislabeling and allow consumers to make informed purchasing decisions based on the recyclability of the items they purchase. Lastly, we all agree that national harmonized rules on labeling would be best. However, California should not be held back by other states that allow confusing and misleading labeling. Californians demand and deserve the truth, and California must lead, and we hope to set the standard for the nation. And as a national organization, the National Stewardship Action Council is committed to helping the industry create harmonization that we all desire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have two witnesses registered to testify in opposition. We have Lauren Aguilar from Ameripen and the Flexible Packaging Association, and Shannon Crawford from the Plastics Industry Association. Moderator, can you please open up the lines for them?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Shannon Crawford, and I'm with the Plastics Industry Association. We represent the entire supply chain for plastics manufacturing in the United States, which covers over 61,000 workers in California. Sustainability is a primary focus of our members in our association. Our members are intent on using recycled content and creating end markets so that less material will go to landfill. I'm testifying to express our concerns with SB 343 because, although unintended, it will result in less recycling and more materials going to landfill. This legislation has started an important conversation on the Resin Identification Code, or the RIC. The current standard dictates this code should be placed inside a triangle and displayed inconspicuously on bottles and rigid plastic containers. Unfortunately, 30 states still require the code be placed inside 3 chasing arrows, creating significant consumer confusion. Plastics is committed to supporting efforts in these 30 states to follow California's lead and update these codes. We sincerely appreciate the author's amendment, which allows our members additional time to comply and update their molds. Despite the progress on this particular amendment, we are very concerned regarding the language of this legislation. While we certainly support efforts to reduce contamination, we cannot support SB 343 because the criteria outlined to determine recyclability is severely restrictive. Using this criteria, only PET and HDPE bottles would be accepted as recyclable across the state. PET thermoforms, which package so much of California's fresh produce, would not be considered recyclable, and neither would polypropylene, which has material qualities which make it the preferred resin for a variety of food and safety products. This committee recently passed AB 478, which requires recycled content in all plastic thermoforms. However, the bill before you would deem those items non-recyclable and they would all be landfilled, making the implementation of AB 478 impossible. Real improvements in the system can only be achieved by an emphasis on developing end markets. Unfortunately, as written, this legislation would make it next to impossible to develop end markets for material not designated recyclable on day one. As currently written, SB 343 will result in more materials in landfills and less recycling. However, we look forward to our continued work with Senator Allen and his staff on solutions to make this bill workable and help improve, not inhibit, recycling. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lauren Aguilar, and I'm here today representing Ameripen, which is the American Institute for Packaging and the Environment, and SPA, the Flexible Packaging Association. Both associations represent packaging material suppliers, packaging producers, and consumer goods companies. I am testifying today with concerns on SB 343. Many of our members are working to increase the recycling and the reuse of their packaging, which we know is a goal of the author, a goal of this committee, and a goal for California. We also want more packages to be recycled. But as seen through the 1583 Commission list of recyclables, only 15 materials made the list, which consists of 8 paper materials, 2 types of glass, 2 types of metals, 2 types of plastics, and 1 type of colored plastic. Based on the current language of SB 343, we expect CalRecycle to reach a similar and extremely limiting list. This will have resounding impacts on the ability of the state to reach their 75% diversion goals and hinder the state's ability to adopt and implement a comprehensive circular economy solution to packaging. Currently, 30 states require the resin identification code for certain plastic packaging be located inside a chasing arrow symbol. SB 343 would make it unlawful for materials not on the recyclable list to have those arrows, which would force companies to be out of compliance with other state laws and, in the end, mandating there be California-only packaging and products. So we have been having conversations with the author's office to extend the effective date of the bill in order for industry to work on getting other states' laws changed so our members won't have conflicting packaging requirements. We do want to thank the author and the committee for those amendments that are laid out in the analysis. Those are positive changes, and we know there are more changes to come to create a solution that will solve contamination in the curbside bins and help more materials get recycled in California. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to the continued conversations around this bill.
Thank you. Next, we will move to testimony from witnesses in support or opposition. We'll be taking name, affiliation, and position on the bill. Are there any witnesses in the hearing room? Okay. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. I'm Alexa Chavez with Californians Against Waste. We are a co-author of this bill and in strong support.
Thank you. Okay, any witnesses in the remote testimony location? I see none. Moderator, can you please open up the lines for witnesses in support or opposition?
Thanks, Madam Chair. For those who wish to speak in support or opposition to this legislation, please press 1, then 0 at this time. And we have several people in queue at this time. We're going to go to line 48. Please go ahead.
Hi, Tiffany Mock on behalf of Ocean Conservancy in support of SB 343.
Line 65.
Hi, this is Lauren Cullum on behalf of Sierra Club California in strong support of SB 343. Thank you.
Line 83.
Hi, this is Jamie Go on behalf of Azul in support.
Line 49.
Thank you, Chair and members. Nikita Karate with the Natural Resources Defense Council in strong support.
Line 71. Me. Line 71, your line is open. Line 71, your line is open. And pardon me, we're going to move on to line 87.
Good morning, Chair members. Priscilla Quiroz on behalf of the California Product Stewardship Council and Stop Waste in support of SB 343. Thank you.
Line 95.
Good morning, Genevieve Abaddon on behalf of the 11 Clean Seas Lobbying Coalition members in strong support of SB 343. Thank you.
Line 94.
Thank you, Chair and members. Jordan Wells on behalf of the California League of Conservation Voters and Storia Stuff in strong support of SB 343. Thank you.
Line 46.
Good morning. Nicole Quinones on behalf of the Household and Commercial Products Association and the Pet Food Institute with an opposed unless amended position, but we do appreciate the amendments the authors taken thus far. Thank you.
Line 88.
Good morning, Chair and members. Bridget McKay on behalf of Seventh Generation and Rethink Waste in support. Thank you.
Line 98.
Good morning. This is Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California in support.
Line 55. Line 55, your line is open.
Thank you. This is Catherine Dodd with the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, and we're in strong support.
Line 84.
Hi, this is Shira with the Atrium, a creative innovation center for sustainability. We built a recycling challenge art installation, and we are very much in strong support because 84% got that question wrong on the chasing arrows. Everybody thought that anything with the chasing arrows can be recycled. So we are very much in strong support. Thank you.
Line 14.
Good morning. My name is John King of the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers, and we are opposed unless amended. Thank you.
Line 76.
Good morning, members. This is Mina Leba on behalf of the City of Thousand Oaks in strong support.
Line 97.
Good morning, Chair Rivas and members. My name is Miho Laguerre, and on behalf of the Surfrider Foundation, we are in strong support of SB 343. Thank you.
Line 99.
Good morning. This is Michael Rockness on behalf of 350 Southland Legislative Alliance and 350 South Bay Los Angeles in support of SB 343. Thank you.
Line 100.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Ms. Chair and members. It's me, Dawn Kepke, on behalf of the California Manufacturers and Technology Association. also with an opposed unless amended position. We do appreciate the amendments thus far and look forward to continuing to work with the author and sponsors. Thank you.
Line 22.
This is Jan Dell, a registered California professional chemical engineer and founder of the Last Beach Cleanup. I support SB 343 because it will bring the innovation we need to get to truly sustainable solutions. Thank you.
Line 103.
Good morning. This is Cheryl Auger, and I lead the Ban Single-Use Plastic Group, and we are in strong support of SB 343, the Truth in Recyclable Labeling Bill.
Line 96.
Hi, my name is Brandon Contreras from Long Beach, and I am in strong support of SB 343. Thank you.
Line 39. Line 39, your line is open. And we're going to invite once again anyone who wishes to speak for or against this legislation to please press 1 then 0 at this time. Press 1 then 0. And we have a couple more who've signaled that they wish to speak. Just a moment. We're going to go to line 71.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Jonathan Clay on behalf of the County of San Diego in support.
Line 111.
Hi, my name is Julie Millette. I'm with Richard Watson and Associates, and I'm in strong support.
In just a moment. Line 110.
Hello, my name is Allison Schlick with Zero Waste San Diego and the California Resource and Recovery Association, calling in strong support of SB 343, Truth in Labeling.
And once again, anyone who wishes to comment in support or against this legislation, please press 1 then 0 at this time. Madam Chair, we have no one else who signaled that they wish to speak.
Thank you. Next, we'll take questions for the author from committee members. Okay, Assemblymember Garcia.
Thank you. Actually, just a comment, and if the bill hasn't been moved, I want to move the bill. I do appreciate your work. I have a lot of interest in the definition of recycling. These labels are misleading. And I want to encourage the opposition to continue to work with you. I know you have an open office, and I appreciate the amendments today, and I do believe real concerns can be addressed. And I just want to say there was a comment about this bill leading to more stuff being landfilled. The reality is that most of this stuff is already being landfilled or being burned or being shipped out, and we're pretending we're recycling out there. And so that's a false narrative that we need to get beyond if we really want to solve this problem. And so I do appreciate the work. I'm hopeful that we could get there, and I'll be tracking this along the way. But thank you. And just, again, I want to strongly encourage folks to have a real discussion about the situation that we have out there. 90% of stuff is not being recycled, can't be recycled. And it can't, if we don't have technology, if we don't have a market, or if the technology does not fit within our environmental clean energy or like climate change goals, it's not technology that we could use. And we need to be taking all of that into account as we're talking about what's recyclable and having a real conversation with their community members out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Wood.
Thank you very much, Senator, for bringing this bill forward. I'm fascinated by the opposition argument here, some of them, and I know you're working with them, and I appreciate that. I'm always diligent about trying to figure out where things are supposed to go and trying to do the right thing. And the realization that a lot of these plastics are simply not recyclable is really, really frustrating for people who are trying to do the right thing. I guess what I found interesting about the opposition argument was that they would have to label something different for California than other states. And I would just say, why don't you just do the right thing and label it like we do in California and stop being disingenuous with other states? Go to one system. This is going to be well vetted. We know what can be recycled and not. Why don't we just do one system and have everybody adopt it? Then you won't have to fight legislation in every state. Just bite the bullet and do it right. Thanks. And I would love to be a co-author should this bill get out. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Suchi?
Thank you. I want to echo Assemblymember Wood's comments. Another example where California should lead the rest of the country in terms of truth and recycling. This idea of wishful recycling is a constant subject of debate between myself and my wife. Where, we're always talking about, her favorite word is recycle. Let's just, put this in the recycling bin where, I'm afraid I'm always joking that she's going to put me in the recycling bin someday. But, yeah.
No, you're more compost.
Go with that. No, actually, great bill. Again, I would also like to be added as a co-author. Thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Okay, Assemblymember Sayarto?
So, I think recycling is probably one of the bigger challenges we have nationwide. And part of it is because our approach used to be the stuff we don't want to recycle or don't want to develop the technology to recycle, we just ship to other nations and hoped that they would do something with it. And they did. They put it in the ocean. And then it floated back over here.
That's right.
So we've kind of learned from that. But, for me, looking at the entire recycling thing, and I'm glad to see the waste industry is finally represented in this conversation, because in the past we've done some legislation that they were absolutely excluded from, and now we have legislation that we're having a hard time enacting because they're an integral part of it, and we just don't have the capacity or the technology to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. But one of my questions is, so, the other states that have this packaging, the labeling requirements and things, is the issue that it's simply not recyclable or reusable, or is it that the technology that's required is not necessarily cost effective, and therefore we don't use it? Because other states may find it is cost effective for them, and they are using it, and they do have a way of taking some of the things we consider not to be recyclable and recycling and reusing those materials. And because I think that's something that we have to be careful of. Also in California, if we're going to separate ourselves from everyone else, there's a cost to doing that. And that cost is added on to the cost of living here in California, which is already higher than a lot of different places. And that cost is borne especially by communities that are predominantly poor, and therefore don't really have the resources to keep spending more and more and more on their food supplies. So those are a couple of things that concern me. Maybe you can address the first one about what other states are doing that we may not be doing. So we consider something recyclable, not recyclable, while they do.
Yeah. So, and then I'd love it if you could, repeat that equity question you asked at the end, because I don't know that I fully heard it. But the first question, California actually does have one of the best systems. It's a combination of several factors, and largely the second one you talked about in terms of cost effectiveness, and then of course end markets, right? So they go hand in hand. If you can't find an end market to sell the products, then you could spend very little on recycling, and it still isn't going to pencil out, right? So you've got to strike a balance here. In the end of the day, most of the items that have the recycling symbol with the 3 through 7 number in the middle, most of them are technically recyclable under perfect conditions. But for a variety of reasons, it's just they are not being recycled. And it's ultimately, as you say, it's a combination of cost effectiveness, technology, end markets, the sorting system. Obviously, if we had something more comprehensive, I mean, folks may know that I've been working with a number of you on a broader play in this area with SB 54. And the idea is with that bill that we would have just more sustainable products in the system writ large. And that would actually help to change our system such that we wouldn't have quite the same sorting and restructuring challenges that currently make so much of recycling cost prohibitive. But we do have one of the best systems in the country. I haven't been presented with a case where there's another state that happens to have a very effective recycling system for a particular resin type that we don't have, that this would jam up. I'm certainly happy to, if there is a case like that, maybe we could figure out a way to ensure that, because the last thing I want to do is jam up a good recycling system that might exist in another state. Maybe there's a way we could tweak the bill to accommodate that. We do have language in the bill, and it's alluded to on page 2 of the analysis, which involves if a producer can come forward with some sort of plan, if they feel as though there is an emerging market, for example, in one of these other resin types that hasn't been covered by the bill, they can come forward with a plan and work with CalRecycle to get it included. So there is flexibility that we offer, but we just want to make sure that the items are really being recycled. I mean, Assemblymember Garcia is absolutely right. This idea that somehow this is going to lead to more landfilling, the fact is all this stuff is going to landfill anyway, and if anything, all it's doing is making it less likely for the ones and twos that really are recyclable, that they're actually getting properly sorted and recycled. That's the sad reality. And one of the things about recycling, when you go to a recycling center, when you go to a dump, you realize that you can spend so much time just perfectly cleaning. There are people who wash all their items before they put it in the recycling bin to increase the chances of recyclability, and that's a good thing to do. But when you go to this, when you go and see the system writ large, and you see how it's all on a conveyor belt together, and there's just these machines and magnets and people sorting, and it's a bulk system, it is true. There will probably be a couple little items that will not get recycled that we're going to get recycled under as a result of this bill passing. But the fact of the matter is the system is so massive, it's so macro. All those items that the vast majority of those 357s are not getting recycled, and they're actually making it harder to recycle the ones and twos.
If our goal is zero waste and recycling everything, then the technologies for those have to be employed. And when there's no market for the technology, that's when government has to step in if it's that important for the public to be able to do that. We need to stop skirting around that part, and that policy has to be dealt with. So I appreciate you answering the question. You did answer that one question, which is yes, there's a lot of recycled stuff that we just choose not to. Basically,
what I will say, Assemblymember, is to the extent we can, right? If we do want to recycle everything, the producers should be shifting to the highly recyclable resin types, right? So there are lots and lots of products that could just as easily be made with a 3 as with a 1. And there are examples of producers who have shifted from a 1 to a 3 simply for aesthetic reasons. And that decision renders that item non-recyclable, just like that. We should be doing everything we can to the extent possible to encourage producers who are in the plastic space to be producing their products using the 1s and 2s, which are highly recyclable. And obviously that's a big part of the goal of 54, to be honest, SB 54. But to the extent that this is imposing some truth in labeling, if producers do care about real recyclability and showing that face to the public, to the extent they can, they will under this bill start using more of the 1s and 2s rather than the non-recyclable plastics.
Is there a product cost to that?
It totally depends on the product. Thank
you.
Assemblymember Flora?
Sometimes no.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, I think it's probably safe to say when you first got elected that you wouldn't just go down. Recycling probably wasn't the reason that you ran for office.
And now it's ruining my life.
Absolutely become that guy, and I actually think it's kind of cool because it is such a huge problem, and you have done an incredible job of trying to find balance. So I wanted to make sure to say that to you personally, because I do believe that wholeheartedly. We've had many conversations on multiple trips talking about this amazing topic. I am curious though, like on the, and you mentioned resin a couple times, you know, what it takes to take a quote unquote non-recyclable product. We know that we can recycle pretty much everything if we reduce it down, back down to its, you know, purest form in a resin. We can inject that again and make a product out of that again. In the state of California, we do not have a ton of those facilities available to do this. And this is one thing that I am very concerned about, is as we remove all this stuff from the stream, that I completely agree that we need to, we do not have the infrastructure in place to actually deal with this, to take these quote unquote, because we all know that pretty much everything is recyclable to a certain degree. We can reduce that down to a petroleum product and reuse it again. We do not have the infrastructure in the state of California to do that, which is why we shipped it overseas and let them deal with it. So I am curious, what are your thoughts on trying to build up the infrastructure within our state to deal with this? Because I think that's an incredibly important part of what we're trying to fix here.
I absolutely agree. There is an infrastructure challenge. I guess one of the questions becomes, to what extent, especially for the technically recyclable but very hard to recycle products, to what extent is it worth really doubling down on investing in that particular type of infrastructure as opposed to encouraging those producers to move to more recyclable products? So that's another part of the cost benefit, because there are, as I say, well, you're right, everything to some extent is recyclable, at least the ones with this, you know, the recycling symbols on them. Some are much more expensive to recycle than others. And so shouldn't we be, you know, shifting people toward the more recyclable stuff to the extent feasible? But you're absolutely right. Infrastructure is a big part of this. I think, you know, one of the thoughts, I think, as we, both with bills like this, but certainly with SB 54, AB 1080, the idea has been to try to create an atmosphere where there's a real incentive for the investors, for the producers, to invest in infrastructure, to actually produce their products with a mind toward recycling, and the collection process and the sorting process with a mind toward recycling. So, you know, and I will say there are a lot of places around the world where they've really taken more aggressive action in this area, where the producers have created kind of holistic systems, and because they know their own products, they're able to build a collection and sorting system and an ultimately recycling system that is more cost effective than the system that we have. So, but you know, I know this infrastructure conversation is happening in a robust manner on both sides of our building. It is absolutely an essential part of the story, but the producers have to be at the table and they have to be part of the solution.
Oh, I completely agree with that. And I think, you know, I'll just use my background and coming from the ag world. You know, this carrot versus the stick approach seems to really work. And if we can encourage the producers, the manufacturers of these products, and come along like a public-private partnership to build these kinds of infrastructures that are required to do this, yes, it is a tremendous cost to recycle some of the harder products. You know, we understand that. But if the state is going to make this a priority, that we're going to drive these mandates, that I think we need to partner with our industries at a state level to get these infrastructure, these facilities up and running as quick as possible, because otherwise we're going to keep fighting the same battle, and we're going to keep wondering why nothing's really changed. And putting it all on the back of industry for the industry to deal with it, I don't think is the right way, because at the end of the day, it's a cost of living issue. I mean, at the end of the day, if industry has to pay X amount of dollars more for a package to package something that my community buys, that is problematic. So I appreciate your efforts in this, and look forward to it as it moves forward.
So remember, but if I may, it is already a cost of living issue, and it's hitting our constituents right now. As I mentioned, something like 70%, nearly 3/4 of cities are about to increase their rates for waste collection. Lots of jurisdictions already have by quite a bit. Our constituents are already paying an inordinate amount of money to Band-Aid over our broken system. So that's something to keep in mind too. When people keep on the producer side say, oh, this may increase the cost of items, you know, it's true, but our constituents are already paying, and they're paying more and more on the waste collection rate side.
Okay. Any other questions from members? Okay. I just want to thank you, Senator Allen, for bringing this bill forward and your continued work on the recycling policy issue area. I know you're very passionate about it. You've been successful. I think that this bill will provide the clarity that consumers need to understand what is recyclable and what isn't. I know in my household, we have several wishful recyclers, unfortunately, that want everything to be recyclable, but this will help them, everyone that has a good intention, right, to recycle, it would help them with this clarity. Also, just I know in curbside recycling, we have a lot of contamination. It's not the intention of the consumer, but it happens. And I think that your bill will help clarify this and help us all understand what is recyclable. So I'm happy to support your bill. And also I would like to be added as a co-author of the bill. Let's see, would you like to close?
No, I just appreciate the support, appreciate the robust conversation, and really our door remains wide open to any member who wants to work with us, staff, as we try to get this right. And this is part of a broader push. There's a lot of bills in the plastic space this year, and obviously, I continue to be really passionate about our broader play with SB 54 that's in the mix. There's a ballot measure, so there's a lot happening in this space, and I really openly welcome all of my colleagues to work with me, and I also would like to work with you as you pursue your own policy priorities in this area. So with that, very much appreciate the discussion and respect for ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. I have a motion from Assemblymember Garcia, seconded by Assemblymember Marisucci. The motion is do pass as amended to Judish. Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Item 3, SB 343 by Senator Allen. The motion is do pass as amended and refer to Judiciary Committee. Members Rivas?
Aye.
Rivas, aye. Flora? Flora not voting. Chow? Chow, aye. Friedman? Garcia? Garcia, aye. Mathis? Mathis not voting. McCarty? Maratsucci? Maratsucci, aye. Sayarto?
Not voting.
Sayarto not voting. Stone? Stone, aye. Wood? Wood, aye.
Thank you, members.
6-0.
Okay, 6-0, but we'll leave it open for absent members. And now your final bill for today, SB 433.
And I appreciate the committee's indulgence. Here I am. This is, hopefully you won't see much more of me.
I think that should indicate we're